All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible stories in modern history. We're going to unpack how a single national currency, the US dollar, somehow ended up running, well, the entire global economy.
I mean, just think about that for a second. How did this one piece of paper, printed in Washington, D.C., become the thing that every country on Earth wanted in its faults? It sounds kind of impossible, right? Well, to get the answer, we have to rewind the clock to a time when the dollar was frankly a nobody on the world stage. So picture this. It's the early 1900s. The sun never sets on the British Empire. And its money, the pound sterling, was basically the financial sun that the entire world revolved around. It was the undisputed king. And the gap between the pound and the dollar, it was huge. I mean, absolutely massive. Back in 1913, if you were buying coffee from Brazil and selling it in Germany, you weren't using dollars, you were using pounds. The US was actually a debtor nation. It owed the world more money than the world owed it. The dollar was really just for use inside America. But in that exact same year, a really crucial piece gets put on the chessboard. The US creates the Federal Reserve. Now, this wasn't just about managing the American economy. This was about building the financial machinery that would let New York banks finally go head-to-head with London. The first shot was fired. And then, the event that would light a fire under this whole process arrived with the sound of cannons. World War I didn't just redraw the map of Europe, it completely rewired the entire world's financial nervous system. Everything was about to change. It's pretty incredible when you look at it. While Europe was just burning through its wealth to pay for this horrific war, the US was selling them the supplies. And what's the ultimate measure of wealth? Gold. So gold starts pouring out of London and Paris and right into New York. In just a handful of years, the US flips from being the world's biggest borrower to its biggest lender. The whole global ledger had been turned upside down. And the cost for the old guard was just staggering. The mighty British pound, which used to be worth almost $5, got absolutely crushed by war debt. It wasn't just a number on a screen. It was a symbol that the old economic order was dying. Global confidence in the pound was shattered. So the period between the wars was just pure chaos. The old gold standard completely fell apart, and then the Great Depression hits, plunging the whole world into an economic nightmare. But right in the middle of all this chaos, the US makes a move that was, at the time, completely shocking, but also totally visionary. Yep, FDR steps in and takes control. He actually makes it illegal for American citizens to hoard gold, and then he cuts the dollar loose from its old anchor. He was getting ready to completely reset the game. See, for decades, this was the bedrock price. $20.67 would buy you 1 ounce of gold. It was a price the entire world had built its finances around. It was stable, it was known. And then, boom, with the Gold Reserve Act, the US government just declares a new price, $35 an ounce. Now, this was a massive devaluation of the dollar, sure, but what it really did was set a new, firm price that America, with its gigantic hoard of gold, could actually guarantee to the rest of the world. So remember this number, $35. It's about to become the most important price on the planet. Okay, fast forward to 1944. World War II is finally winding down, and Allied leaders get together in a little town in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods. The official story was they were there to design a new economic system to prevent future chaos, but let's be real, this was America's show. The conference basically came down to a duel between two big ideas. On one side, you had Britain's brilliant economist John Maynard Keynes. He proposed this truly international system with a brand new world currency called the bankrupt. But the American guy, Harry Dexter White, he had a much simpler and way more powerful idea. Just make the US dollar the center of everything. And well, since America had all the gold and all the economic muscle, guess whose plan won? The new rules of the game were honestly beautifully simple. Step 1, the dollar is the anchor, locked to gold at that magic price of $35 an ounce. Step 2, all other currencies would just orbit the dollar, pegged to it at fixed rates. And step 3, you create the IMF and the World Bank to act as the referees. Just like that, a new dollar-centric world was born. Okay, so there was just one little problem. For this whole new system to actually work, the rest of the world needed to get its hands on dollars, and war-torn Europe was broke. They had none. This was called the dollar gap, so what was the solution? The Marshall Plan. The US literally gave billions of dollars to Europe to rebuild. And this wasn't just charity. It was a genius strategic investment to make sure the world had the cash it needed to run on this new dollar software. And you know what? For about 15 years, the Bretton Woods system worked like a dream. It led to this incredible era of global growth. But its very success was planting the seeds of its own destruction. There was a fatal flaw, a contradiction, built into the very heart of the system, and it was starting to show. People started calling this paradox the Triffin dilemma. And it goes like this. For the world economy to grow, it needs more dollars to flow around. For the U.S. to supply those dollars, it has to spend more money abroad than it brings in. It has to run deficits. But the more paper dollars it prints and sends out into the world, the less believable its promise to back every single one of them with its limited supply of gold becomes. The system was basically designed to slowly self-destruct. And other countries were definitely starting to notice. The most famous critic was the president of France, Charles de Gaulle. He famously complained about America's exorbitant privilege, this wild ability to just print money out of thin air and use it to buy real stuff like cars and wine from the rest of the world. And he wasn't just going to complain. He decided to do something about it. De Gaulle essentially called America's bluff. He started sending French naval ships over to New York Harbor to trade in their stacks of paper dollars for actual physical gold bars from the U.S. Treasury. He was poking at the system's core weakness, and pretty soon other countries started getting the same idea. A slow-motion run on the bank had just begun. And the results of this slow-motion bank run was predictable. That massive hoard of gold that was supposed to back the entire global financial system started draining away at a really alarming rate. The promise that held the whole world together was becoming mathematically impossible to keep. You could literally see the system cracking under the strain. Which brings us right to the final question, doesn't it? The system they designed at Bretton Woods was clever, for sure, but it seems like it had a self-destruct button built in from day one. So was its collapse just an accident of history? Or was it always, from the very beginning, completely and totally inevitable?